Ladies and gentlemen, be careful walking, my friend. I'm telling you.
I call myself fixing up the
Ladies and gentlemen, here we are. We're in the studio this time, but I tell you what, who's here? Yeah, you see him putting on the headphones. That's the guy. He knows the things, and we're going to have a conversation with him today to find out a few of those things. I'm really interested in just how things are coming along these days with your, you've been retired now for some amount of time, and so a lot of people are not ready for retirement, is what I've heard. I mean, I really think that people have this almost a delusional concept of what, and it's across the board, from dying the next day all the way to having the best life ever. And I'm wondering if you could give us a little reality check here about what is going on with this retirement? Is it good? Is it bad? Should we run toward it? Should we pace ourselves? What should we do with this retirement thing, man? I'm just asking.
If I could go back to the Tom that still had brown hair back in 62, or back at the age of 62, right?
Right.
And
wow, that just the number there has so much meaning,
the age of 62 when I actually stepped off the stage. So I would say manage your expectations, brother. Because
good advice, probably.
Because whatever you're expecting, that's not what it's going to be.
It's absolutely not what you think it's going to be. That's what. But wait, we prepared for this. We've read. We've talked to other people. We know. I'm off for work, and here's my day, and it's. You're saying it's none of that. That's basically what you're saying. We don't know what this is.
I don't know that there was anything out there to read. That's the first thing. I think it'd be great if there was some kind of how to do it for baby boomers. And
I don't know. Maybe this is the start for it. Maybe we can talk about that. Here's what you need to know to retire successfully.
Well, the first thing is, what are your expectations?
All right.
Set some.
Get a hold on those expectations. I don't know. I'm always over processing that information and making it sound good. It's a little bit of Dunning-Kruger effect where you hear what already fits with what you believe. So I don't know, but maybe that's what it is. I'm optimistic is another way to say that. So
I think what I was thinking as far as retirement is that I've worked hard my whole life. I put all these things on hold. Now I'm going to go do them.
Right. That's a typical, yes, I've heard that before. All right, so how's that working?
Well, you eventually have to define what the retirement's going to be. What are going to be your priorities, just like any other thing. It can't be, well, now I'm going to kick back and do nothing. There's that temptation at first. The idea of a vacation. Right. It's like a vacation.
Yes, you entertain this wonderful idea of how you're just going to have all the leisure time. It's a little kind of brings me back to when we were talking about technology making our lives and giving us more leisure time. We got fooled on that, so I don't know, but do you think that we really need to do this maybe? Maybe we need to figure out what we're doing well before retirement and start the retirement before the actual event.
That's a thought. What do you think that might look like? That is a really good thought. Kind of ease into it. Just semi-retired. I'm working some, but I'm sort of starting to define what the future is going to look like, right?
Yeah, and I think it has something to do with what you want to do and how you're spending your time. Those time management things where they brought in the time manager or expert and analyst, and they came in and looked at and they wanted you to fill out the timesheets. What are you doing every 15 minutes throughout the day? And they try to gather some data on that and what you do during the day. Well, the point I was trying to make is this: that what are you spending your time at now? Is it 80% prior to retirement? Is it 80% about the job and the work and the business?
Yeah.
And how much about you and what you want to do and your interest in hobbies and things like that. Now, hobbies is another part that we need to talk about, because do you really get the opportunity to jump into the hobbies and take off on those things and do the things you said you'd get to eventually?
Yeah, but the thing is that in some ways, some of the things you had thought, oh, this will be great. I can do this activity, this hobby, this I can travel. I can do the. When you actually do them, they don't really pay off in terms of the old dopamine and serotonin the way you thought they might.
Oh, you're looking forward to something and it lets you down.
It is like so many things. Yeah, it can let you down, and that's why I say, what are your expectations?
Right, right.
And it's funny in the same way it's a journey, right? So
Yeah, sure.
you learn things along the way, and if you allow yourself to say, this is an interesting learning experience, that the
Right.
idea of being in the moment and learning from the experience versus the I have these goals, I didn't reach them, now I'm mad.
Right. Yeah,
Right,
right.
Now I'm
Yeah.
the guy. I'm the I set goals guy because that's how I built a career.
Well, there you go.
But then often I found in my career, okay, I got here. Okay, so here I am. It ain't what I thought it'd be, right? So the same thing's true in retirement, the same kind of thing, that you have an expectation and then it doesn't exactly pan out exactly what the way you thought it might.
So I'll get back to what I was thinking about this preparation or this time, and really do a reality check on how much time you're spending on the task that you have and what you would like to do, and can you already start moving before the event? I mean, start moving toward, okay, maybe I'll just take a little bit more time and go bike riding, or do whatever that hobby has to be, and you're starting to build up.
Yeah.
And then, but that gives you some evidence. Do I really like this? Do I really want to do this at the retirement, or maybe not? I don't know, but I think you almost have to practice.
That's certainly a great thought. And in other words, at least have some mental preparation. It's always good to have a mental map. You may not follow it, but
Right.
you have a plan, and then you have feedback from the plan, and you go, well, I'm going to tweak the plan, and eventually the journey transforms into something that it works better for you.
Right.
So I like that idea,
Well,
the idea of
it's
the practice.
Practicing retirement.
Practice retirement.
Practice retirement. I don't know. We didn't invent anything new right there. But listen, I think it's good to think about it, because if you can really look forward to things, right? I mean, it's like retirement is almost an empty dream. You look forward to this thing called a retirement, and it lets you down a little bit if you haven't done your homework.
Yeah.
Goals makes a little plan of some sort as a guideline, and then taking inventory of what do you like to do? How would you spend your time if you had a free day, untethered? What would you be doing? And that's a great question. A lot of people can't answer that question.
Well, I think the temptation can be,
Or they would say it real quick and then change their mind after they thought about it.
the temptation can be, my retirement will look like I get up and I eat breakfast, and then I'm just going to check the news out. So I sit down in my chair with my phone, or I turn on the TV, or whatever however you do that.
Yep.
And then it's noon and it's time for lunch. Then it's time for a nap. And then you wake up from the nap and you're stiff, so it takes 2 hours to get back in the groove, and now it's time to go to bed. And suddenly those days can turn in.
That doesn't sound what I was thinking about.
Well,
Yeah.
well, that's exactly right. But that can easily happen with anything. You get caught in a rut, and with retirement, since there's nothing that really holds you accountable. In other words, I don't have to make my 10 o'clock meeting.
Right.
I don't have to make my publication schedule to get tenure or whatever it is for
Right.
you.
Right.
Once that's gone,
That structure is gone.
then,
What do you do?
Then it's all about choice, and every day is a blank slate. That sounds great and intoxicating, but in the
Yes.
same way, it can be intimidating and overwhelming, right? I mean,
Right.
that sounds almost, come on, man, that can't be right, but it is right.
Right. I think we have to be somewhat realistic in the fact that we don't have control over all of our time. We are connected. We are married or have kids, families, all of the other things that people do. So there's some other factors that you have to put into that equation. It's not just you being hedonistic and enjoying everything that you want, that when you want it. That's never been the case. We always seem to want that. I'm not sure we would. But that unfettered time frame becomes the burden. That's what you're saying. Okay, so if we wake up, you drink your coffee, you look at news, or you doom
scroll, yeah. or pick up, in my case, pick up a guitar. Now 2 hours have gone by. You haven't really practiced. You just sat there playing the same thing you played yesterday over again, right?
Oh man, you're revealing all of the things that are happening around here.
So
this retirement.
That's an aspect of it. The other aspect of it is, for me anyway, my wife was at home, and she had a routine, a life that she had developed, and I was away working.
Oh, that's right. We did. Yes, talk about the spouse here.
Right, and so suddenly, I'm always there.
Yes.
And
yeah,
I could sense she was like,
the wife saying, "Why are you hovering? What are you doing?"
Yeah, I'd say, "Hey, no, I don't want to, go get pancakes or whatever. I have laundry, or I have this is my spiritual reading time, or whatever it is that she had planned." And it's like, it didn't really involve me.
Yeah, that's the complicating factor. Other people, right? So you're not alone in your retirement. So you have to still manage your relationships and the time that you spend. Ooh, maybe we need to do some practice on that. We talked about practicing retirement. Maybe we need to do practice on relationships in retirement, maybe. I don't know.
And part of managing the expectations, maybe have some discussions. What's this going to look like? What's it going to look like when suddenly there I am at home and
underfoot
and exactly invading the space that you've crafted, and you were used to a schedule where somewhere around 5:30, 6 o'clock I rolled in. I might even have something at night, but I wasn't always underfoot, as you said.
Right. So we can come across like that, in certain ways. So
I've sort of felt for her, actually. I was like, oh, man, I know she didn't sign up for this old guy hanging around the house all the time.
Now you got to put up with me hanging out.
Yeah.
Okay, not good.
Yeah.
Well, this just seems to be so many facets of this. I'm kind of wondering just how we corral all of this information. Maybe we need some AI help here or something, but we talked about that before. Maybe not on some occasions. So I don't know. All right, we both are retired. Let's give do an inventory and a checklist here of how it's going. So your retirement, how many years for you now?
It's it's coming up on 8 years. Yeah.
Get out of town.
Yeah, I know. It's hard to believe.
No, it's not. That's not right. You're way off on that.
Yeah.
You can't be right on that.
I'll turn 70 this year, and I was 62, so maybe 7 years. 7 years.
Oh, my goodness.
It seems to me, at least in my life anyway, life has been a series of 8-year periods.
Oh,
8 year here, 8 years there, moving around. So I'm sort of at a transition now to where, it's going really well.
Right.
But there's a lot of lessons learned along the way. And, by the way, one thing I didn't bargain for was one right after the other, a tornado taking out a large part of my all the trees on our property and just creating a mess. I didn't plan on having 2 young grandchildren after I'd been through the whole grandchildren thing.
There you go.
And then 3, there was the COVID thing that sort of upended the entire planet.
Yeah, right.
So
the unexpected.
Any plans I had were absolutely upended, and so there was that whole opportunity for growth.
Oh my goodness! There you go. You must
that.
Be some sort of academic type to say something like that.
That's right. The whole positive thinking thing. But
positive thinking, that's out. We're no longer doing that. But no, that's totally understandable. Well, I'm glad. First of all, I'm glad we're having this conversation about retirement because we talked about it enough, and we're also living it
Yeah.
to a certain extent. I'm I'm really thinking it's not much different, and I'll go off on the tangent here or go off the edge. It's not much different from work. It's just a different
No,
work.
it's a
Are we saying something? I don't.
See, I think you're exactly right.
What
Well,
what happened?
in your retirement, you had planned one kind of studio, one type of setting up podcasts, video
Right.
casts, and that kind of thing.
Right.
And then that was all upended by COVID.
Oh yeah, COVID killed it. It took us out of downtown Columbus because it dried up completely.
Yeah.
And it was, and we were just starting to. We had our business plan. You and I had
We had a
mapped out a
business
lot of
plan.
stuff.
Yeah.
There, so, but yeah, it's just unforeseen. But it's also that was catastrophic in so many people's lives. People died and businesses went out, and we've had to recover. So those are the kind of things that I think you got to be ready for in real life versus retirement.
Well, and the world's
Did I
different.
just say that?
The world's different, right?
Oh, yeah,
so,
the world's
so
different.
that whatever we were planning pre-COVID absolutely would not be applicable to the current environment.
Right.
It's so different, and
Yes.
there are new generations doing new things. So how do we fit in? How do guys in their 70s fit in with the world?
Well,
Are we is our role to totter on off and go quietly and just not create don't make a lot of noise and just, hey sir, nice waiting on you, go sit over there. You know, is that what our role is, or do we do we still have
I don't
something
think so.
to
I'm
contribute?
going to set fire to something. I don't know what's going to happen. We're going to blow something. I don't know what's going to happen, but we're not going out quietly. No, I don't know. It just seems to me that there are expectations. You mentioned that we should have them about ourselves and some goals that we look forward toward retirement. But yeah, there's just so much to take in that you really can't have that straightforward plan. You have to build in these contingencies. What will I do? How will we survive? What do we need? All of those it's almost survival in a certain extent. And now our political world and our United States is going through some real chaotic times.
Chaotic.
And I don't like chaos. I'd rather have some sort of certainty, or at least something toward something we can feel stable and wake up the next morning and feel like it's going to be okay. And when we're at the whims of people with money and power, that's not always the kind of thing a person does in their 70s. But in the 70s, they're also, it does seem that moving toward 80, by the way, that's another thought. But the 70s really.
Well, 80 is the new 70.
80s is the new 70s. 70s is the new 50s.
That's
I'll
right.
Say that
That's right.
now. I don't know.
Thing, are you healthy? And gosh, if you're healthy, then that's a gratitude thing as well. And the third thing is, how are you managing your spiritual growth and your health, your personal health? Are you doing anything to stay healthy? Are you doing anything to grow spiritually? Yeah. And are you doing anything to grow intellectually? So before you start asking, well, am I relevant? Start with a grateful mind. Start working on who you are and those kinds of things. One thing, as I've gone through this journey, I've realized that a lot of things I thought I was were really sort of illusory.
Right.
You know, as long as you have a 10 o'clock meeting, will you matter? Well, do you?
Right.
Do you really?
Wow, that gets into so much. Well, you just described really a sort of a roadmap that we have to take into consideration, really try to understand where we are and where we're going, those kind of things, but also where we've been and lessons learned, if you will. So that's a big roadmap for someone to traverse and really do the work. And I guess it gets back to what we've been trying to talk about on all these other podcasts is learning about how to live life, really, the simple way to put it, but how to be somewhat good at at life. In a way.
Yeah.
Take that
So
simple.
it goes to your point about it. Retirement looks a lot like work. It's different work. So let me ask you this, because as a therapist, and it'd be an interesting question for Dan. I'd love to hear both your takes on this.
Yeah, and
If
we'll get to Dan when we get to Dan. How
if
about that?
if somebody came to you and said, well, Dr. Baltimore, I retired and now I feel like I don't matter. I don't have a life. The life I knew is gone. What do I do?
Right.
Where
Right.
would you go as a therapist with that?
Yeah,
Because
that's
this guy's depressed. He's retired and now he's no longer.
that as well. Yeah, so I guess, man, it does get back to your question about, doing some planning and that kind of thing. But really, I think what I would want to say is, I think first of all, the person has already set an assumption in place by saying the very first things that came out. I'm not good. This is not working out.
yeah.
So that's already an outlook there. So I would kind of take them back, and depending on the counseling theory, and I'm going to do some more work on counseling theory. So you guys hang in there for that. I swear I can't stop it. But the idea is, depending on the particular theory, you want to kind of go, wait a minute, let's take inventory and just see what you've accomplished and what you've done. I'm going to put the ledger down here, and let's start seeing, and let's start marking and writing down the kinds of things that this person has assets from, has built in him or her, and in lifetime, and really sort some things out. So you never want to engage in a tug of war with a depressed person. Don't worry, be happy. But you kind of want to set the record straight, and really, if you, from a cognitive therapy standpoint, for example, you really want to do and start a Socratic dialogue. You really want to ask people, yeah, you said that about yourself, but what's the evidence for that? And let's take a look at things
Wow.
and start to break down and things. What you end up doing is find out this person has a lot of assets, and they're probably estimating the difficulty somewhat, and you want to build on those strengths. You don't want to argue and tear down their thought process, because maybe there are some things that have caused this person to get to that place. But yeah, I think from the very start, if you sort of look for where, and this is another theoretical point of view, but you're kind of looking for the underlying feeling that is sort of floating there, and it may be something about self-worth, it may be about a lot of other things, but you kind of want to listen very carefully, and that's the first thing a counselor needs to do. So the answer to your question is listen, and then depending on the theoretical approach and what you feel as a therapist might be the best approach with the person sitting in front of you, and you've done your training and work and experience, and so you can make a judgment about which of those theories and which really the way to talk to this client, if you will, and kind of go from there. But there's two big traps. One is getting in the tug of war where I'm bad, no, you're not bad, and you're kind of pulling the rope, and also giving into beliefs that are somewhat sketchy. Maybe this person holds a belief, and you go, wait, the world of information around us says something different. Now, how do I approach this person to get them to kind of think outside their box, if you will? It's too long of an answer for your question.
No, I really like some of the things you said I haven't really thought about. So the first thing is don't tear down their thought process, how they got to where they are. In other words, say, it's okay, they're there, suck it up.
Right. We've all come through it. Let me tell you about my story. That's the other thing.
That would be my approach totally. It'd be, back when I had that problem, I had that surgery, and here's what I did. So that's the first thing. But the second thing is
and it's not all bad. However, used in that particular situation, I mean, the idea of self-disclosure should be very, very limited and never get to that point, and only tell that story about you when you are absolutely convinced that it's going to make just a little difference or open the door a little bit. Otherwise, stay silent. Keep those stories to yourself. That's what I'd say in training, but
You know
there's
what?
exceptions to those rules.
See, so when I worked with you, maybe that's what I should have done. That was my next step, to actually go through and take that program and actually become a counselor, not just sort of pretend to be one because I was your associate. Because those are skills that absolutely, I wouldn't say I don't have them.
No, you don't.
I think they're in all of us.
Shouldn't say that because you do, and I've seen it. And that
but you have to practice.
yeah.
And my practice
We're
is
getting
to
back
say
to that.
it. My practice is, if I tell one story, I figure 3 or 4 would be
Man,
better.
I got a better story than that. Let me this. If you hear this story, everything's going to be good. No, I understand that, but yeah, and you were making a point. I took you off track just a little bit, but the idea that it is the tendency is to really connect with that person and let them know that you're really trying to feel and be in that moment with them in their journey. I mean, that's as soon as you start talking about yourself, or I may add, for our couples and family therapists out there, if you start talking about people who are not in the room, that may be a signal that you want to kind of look at where you're going with this. So, as a famous, well, in my world, he's famous. A supervisor who once told me that, in very clear terms, do therapy with the people in the room, and I've learned that lesson. Now I've kept it up a little bit. It seems to help out. But yeah, back to this idea of the person coming in not being ready for that. I think we have to depending on the theoretical approach, might be a reality therapy approach. What's stopping you from getting what you want? I mean, what you want your retirement? So it seems like something's blocking you from moving to the goals that you set. And what is that? And let's define it and just kind of take it apart a little bit.
But what I like is that you put the ball back in the court of the person who's talking to you. So in other words, if you're doing sort of a self-analysis on this whole retirement trip or any trip, really, you ask yourself, okay, yeah, I feel this way or think I feel this way. So what are the reasons I feel this way?
Right.
Are those real? First, are those real concerns? And second, if they are is there anything I can do about them? Those kinds of things.
I think that's sort of the William Glasser reality therapy approach, and I like the term reality in there. I mean, we're always struggling with those kinds of things, but in order to answer those questions about what's stopping you, you really have to go back and look at a history of this person to kind of get them to that point. You don't want to rush real fast in therapy anyway, but you do have to figure out, what's the missing information that this person doesn't have it there, or unwilling to accept information. So you do have to have enough information to convince a skeptic, so to speak, about their personal situation. And you're the stranger. You're the person on the outside kind of helping. So you have to be careful in those ways. But you have to provide enough information or reality to support this person's goal and what's going on, and have them seriously take a self-reflection period of time to say, hey, I don't like this. I don't like where it's going, and what can I do? And then you face some of those facts. Nobody wants to hear that therapy is going to be about you doing the work, not the therapist.
Yeah, one thing we're talking about, this whole idea of retirement, and it's already, I realized as I was talking that it's predicated upon the idea that, well, first your basic needs are met.
Right.
You have a house, you have plenty of food, you have some resources to do some things if you want to. Now, there's some people who can no longer work.
Right.
But then they don't have those resources, so that's a whole different discussion too.
Yes.
And then they have the whole spiritual side. But if those basic needs aren't met, then wow.
Well, and health related issues.
Health related
issues. You get older, the things things start breaking down. If you haven't experienced that, give me a call. I'll tell you about it. But for the most part, we get lucky sometimes in life. I think sometimes, and hopefully we can control some of the things that we can control in our lives to make our lives a little better and the people around us and things like that. So it does take a lot of planning. But I think there's another factor in this retirement here, this notion, and I don't think people are good at it. And what I mean by that is I don't think people are really good at free time. Time where it's just wide open. We need a structure. We need a schedule. We need a box. We need these kind of things. And so, in a way, the structure of the work environment, the university in our cases and other situations, gave us order and chaos. Order of prevention of chaos, and gave us structure and gave us a time frame and told us when to do it and when to leave and when to come back. And
and there was plenty of chaos too. that added the spice and excitement, right?
I didn't know how to explain that. I think I spoke out of turn there a little bit, but yeah, absolutely, the chaos with structure though.
Yeah.
All right. So less chaos in retirement and zero structure. Well, as we mentioned, the other things, but I want to focus on the free time. So there you go. You got. And it's limited. It's not like, oh boy, I'm free for a month.
Right. No.
No. You got a couple hours here.
Right.
I hate to. Sorry, guys. I want to just say, I had to break it to you, but that retirement thing, you got about 2 hours of free time every day. That's about it. So, what do you think? I mean, it's less than you thought, but how do you make it into something that's somebody says, wow? That's a good retirement, Tom. You know, you get an A in retirement. How do you earn that A? What do you have to do if people looking in to say?
This is going to be kind of like a Sean Cruisen answer.
Oh.
I don't know that you're going to want to hear what I have to say.
Good source, by the way.
It may not. Yeah, it may not be what you expect me to say. But the truth of the matter is, for me, I ultimately found I had to structure my own day, and I had to have some routine. So if you have 2 hours of free time, then it really doesn't matter what you do, but it does matter that you do. And what I mean is, if it's sit on the couch and look at the backyard, well, there's a value to that. And so own it, live it, and if you enjoy that use of your free time, as Sheryl Crow says, if it makes you happy, it can't be that bad. By the same token, if you find 18 hours of doing that, well, either you've structured your time as a monk.
That's right.
Then your whole life is meditation, and that's okay. Yeah. But then if there are other things, do you want to garden? Do you want to ride your bike? Do you want to go to the gym? What about your family life? What about your kids? What about your grandkids? All those things. You know, I've noticed with you, you seem to have a regular round of visitors. I'm one of them today, but you have a regular round of visitors out here to the compound, the Baltimore compound out here. And a lot of them stay overnight and even several nights, right?
My idea of having a commune from the 60s is not coming to fruition as I had thought. No. I appreciate that, but listen, that brings up another issue, my friend. So let me just go there for 1 second. Retirement. Now, if you live in downtown and all the people are around you coming and going, that's another thing. But if you live out in the hacienda, out on the outskirts of town, and you retire, your connection with all those people, and I said this to. Maybe it was you yesterday. We talked about this a little bit in the phone conversation. That listen, you don't have the accessibility to the people that you actually. Right. There were people 2 doors down on the hallway at the university. I just go down and pop in their office. We talk about it. We make plans. We visit. People are coming and going. Well, that does not happen in retirement if you move out on the estate or wherever you go. But you have to make that effort. You were talking about efforts before and the work it goes into it, but that's one of them. You have to go out and reach and reacquaint yourself with your friends again, because they're doing the same thing. If they're at your age, they're retired, they're going, vacation, doing different things that they have been doing, and understanding how to live in the retirement world. But we're isolated to a certain extent, and you got to do something about that.
Well, you reached out to me several weeks ago.
Yeah, man.
And it's, the whole COVID thing and life and this and that and the other. We had just not communicated for a while. It wasn't anything intentional. It just kind of seemed to evolve that way. But you've made an effort to reach out not just to me, but to other people and bringing them back in. But you know what I think, what occurs to me?
I don't know.
In our department, we had a culture. Not every academic department has this culture, but we had a culture where certain days everybody just kind of showed up. And then there was that, sometimes you were in there writing on your article or working on your lessons or whatever you were doing, but there was a lot of pop-in collaboration. And because of that, you had all these projects. You had Hackett, Baltimore projects, you had Gillum Hackett projects, you had Gillum Baltimore projects.
All right,
you had Rick Long. I mean, all these people, and then we drag in Tom McCormick. I mean, and we had all these multiple projects, and they were real productive because they ended up publications, presentations, and all that.
Yeah, presentations. Yeah.
But now that I think back, you had sort of been the fulcrum of that culture. And the reason that occurs to me, I've often mentioned this to Janie, that I remember the first time you and I ever talked. You probably don't remember.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, here we go.
I'm
in trouble now.
It was right when I became had taken over the Ed Leadership program, right? And so I had a new office. It was sort of in the center of the program, and I was sitting in there we were in the middle of Southern Association. I was trying to figure out what to do. And all of a sudden, this guy is in my door. And I knew who you were. We had met, but you and I had never talked. And you just started talking about a project. You said, I'm working on this project, and you'd be great too. and this is the thing that drew me in. And you said, and this is the new way we're going to publish. And you had in your hand a camera with a lens, and I went,
oh, trouble.
And that was pre-Studio 212. That was pre-Columbus State TV. That was pre your studio downtown. So, but you had created that. So maybe that's a way. You mindfully, as you define your expectations, what does a good retirement look like for me? What makes me happy? Right. What do I want? That's probably too much. Too many stories, as I have a tendency to tell. But
well, no, I appreciate it. I don't. You're right. I didn't remember that, but I hope I wasn't overstepping my boundaries when things like. I give you a call on your phone in your office and ask the infamous question, "What are you doing right now?"
That's right. It was the infamous question, and then I got to where I became practiced at. We sat down in front of a camera and developed something.
Listen, you had great. You still have great skills at that, and learned that so fast. I think the idea is, at one point I was thinking, if I'm going to everybody's office and dragging them out and putting them in front of a camera in the studio, I got to have a good reason for that. And I think I've come up with a couple of them. But also not just overstepping, but bringing people together a little bit and trying to think, hey, we can have a conversation and we can do things differently, and we can do. Yeah, and that started the whole Journal of Technology and Counseling with Marty Jensis and I. There was kind of a similar idea that we wanted to hear not just from what the author said in an article, as we read an article, and it has an introduction and the methodology and the review and the conclusions, but what did the author really want to say? I was always curious about that question, and it was something Marty and I really had a lot of conversations about, and he's now up at Kent State. Hope he's doing well. Shout out to Marty Jensis.
The legend.
The legend, the only one I know of. And So it seems to start with me from a question, and I want to find out something, and I want to figure out how things work or how they're connected, and I think all of it kind of boils down to a good education in research methods, and I had more than enough. I've had
Yes.
plenty. I'm going to do more with that before it's all over. But hey, I think once you learn the scientific inquiry, and you have a question, and you have a sort of a natural curiosity on things that you want to ask questions about. Well, how does that work over there and you begin starting with the curiosity, and then you just ask the question. Somebody else says, "Hey, that's a good question." Then you're running off with a research project. Well, I'm glad we're here today. I know that, and I appreciate you coming out. So let's figure this thing out. Let's wrap up with the perfect conclusion that will solve all the issues around retirement. No, that's not going to happen. But what are some of your ideas that if you were coaching somebody, and I know someone who's soon to retire.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, I know a few of those folks.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I can just blanket this. We'll make a seminar, 6-series video seminar on how to retire.
Mm-hmm.
No, I take that back. Too much time. What I will say is, and I'll get to it in just a moment, that we should have some plan, and how can we be helpful to the people about to retire? Okay, so I mentioned those guys. I know one. I'm married to one, by the way, who's looking in that retirement. She works a tremendous schedule and does all that.
Yeah, that's right.
And looking for retirement. And I'm trying to help her, but you can't do that with your spouse. I learned that a long time ago. You cannot do therapy with your family members. Don't try it. No one needs to try that.
Right, especially when you're both therapists, right?
Well, yeah, she
knows the game. She knows how it works. Yeah.
Yeah. So the person about to retire, I'm not sure what I can say, Tom. I just don't. I want to say I don't know. First of all, if number one, if they're open to hearing any advice about that, or want to even talk about it, or maybe they do or don't. You got to read that first. If they're open to talking about it, then you ask them, well, what do you expect, and then to go from there. What do you think?
I like what you had said a little while earlier about the method of inquiry, the scientific approach. So, and you just sort of alluded to it just now. It all starts with the question. So what does a retirement mean to you? What does it look like to you? What can yours look like? And then to ask a follow-up question. See, that's a lot of times we ask the question and then we never question what we come up with.
As the kids say, heard.
So we were right. Why, for instance, it's a cruise. Okay, so what about a cruise? Are you going to cruise every day? What about a cruise? See, for me, it was initially travel.
Right.
And
I heard that very recently, too. I said, hey, you guys about to retire? Oh, we're going to travel.
Travel that's the vacation mentality. We're going to have a permanent, never-ending vacation. Well, maybe you are, but for me, it didn't really work. No. And so really, the question is, what does that look like to you? And then start really digging down, as we used to say, get granular, go to the details, and see, is this important? Is that important? What if this doesn't happen? What then? Those kinds of questions. Because if you go with, hey, I'm going to go to the Rockies, then I'm going to go up to the Smokies and go backpacking first, you're not 27. So how's that going to work? Well, it didn't work that well.
I don't think we talked about age enough in this thing. All right, we'll come back to it.
Well, age is that's a whole different podcast. But
podcast.
I will say it keeps it exciting, because when you get up in the morning, you never know what you got. So it's exciting, right?
Yeah, it is.
But I think you said it best. The first thing is to sit down. If there was a seminar for retiring folks, you do just like you do anything else. What are your expectations? What are your goals? What do you think it'll look like? Well, I'm just going to lay back and relax. What does that look like?
Exactly.
Because that means different things. Lay back and relax to me means something different from, say, Janie. or say you, right?
Anybody,
So,
yeah. It's all different. Yeah, I like that idea, but here's what I think when the difficulty comes in is when you ask those questions. I think I may have tried this. I hope I didn't. Maybe I'm having just a memory. I'm sure I've tried it. Yeah, talking to my wife about her retirement, and then you ask those questions. Well, in my case, you can't be bothered for that answer to that question because she didn't think that's a good question. So I have to come back. Yeah.
Okay.
So all right. Where I'm going with this is that if you ask somebody, okay, so what are you going to do? You're going to retire. Yeah, I'm going on that vacation. What are you going to do after you come back from that vacation? Well, I'm going to plan another vacation. I'm going to go there. And then we'll keep going and endless chain of vacations. Although that's not realistic either. So the difficulty is, what are you going to do next? It's that question. And no one wants that question. No one wants to answer that question. No one wants to be bothered with it. And there's a certain spontaneity and just at the moment, as I feel like it, let's jump in the car and go somewhere, do some things. But when you ask the person dead on about how they're going to do it, they can't list out all those things. They have no clue about those things.
That requires a lot of neural space. Yeah. I mean, it really does. I'm gonna kick back. I'm gonna travel. I'm gonna play. I'm gonna join a band. Whatever it is, whatever that is to you, that doesn't require a lot of neural space. You just go to your old script, kick it up, and then play it.
That's a good point.
But what happens if there is no music scene to play in? You're going to play in your backyard? Are you going to do what Dave Morgan and I were talking about the other night, start having some jazz jam parties where people could come and play? They don't get paid. So, once you start, those things require a lot of neural space to process. And sometimes you go, man, I just want to retire. I don't want to think about it.
Well, I think of it, too, like this. When I was younger, the kids would just get together in the neighborhood. Hey, you want to play ball? Yeah, everybody would come filing out. We'd play ball. So now it's there's a number of factors. One, age, as you mentioned.
Yep.
Isolation, number two. We talked about that. You're separated from your friends you can hang out where you can shout out your front door and says, who's up for a game of ball? And then everybody runs. Now it's like, I got to make that effort to go. I got to call Tom. What's Tom's phone number? Is he still got that phone? How does it where does it go from here? And that logistics, the logistics of getting people to be there to show up for something they would like. But I love your idea of sort of the music thing where people bring an instrument.
Right. Well, it's just a variation of when we lived in the neighborhood. We're all getting together at Billy's house. He's the drummer. He's got his drums there. Everybody brings something. Bring your amp, bring your guitar. Do we have a PA? Oh, Susie has a PA. She can bring that PA. And you'd have a band.
Listen, I had one.
It's hard to do now.
You're making me recall one of our best get-togethers. Just before Christmas, I was living in a basement apartment with a huge waterbed that took up most of the room. And I invited people over on a whim, and, of course, they were all musicians, and we had a bunch of instruments laying around, different things happening, and it turned into one of the best parties ever because we were listening to music, and then we were playing some music, and people were joking and having the best time. And so I think music does that to people. It has to be open, and it's a way to get people together. So I support your idea. You and Dave, go for it.
Yeah, well, Dave had an event a couple weeks ago where that's I don't know if you know Dallas Smith, the sax player. He was coming to town. He wanted to get up a gig. There were no place to gig that weekend, couldn't get it going. So he said, what about a party? And Dave threw a party in his studio. It was jammed. And as I left, I was leaving. I was like, wow, man, there's a lot going on. As I was leaving, I'd been there a couple hours, and then all these young guys were coming in, and I didn't know they're carrying guitars and horns and beer. And so it was happening. I don't know how late they stayed, but
Well, I come
This
back.
looked like fun.
I like that idea, and you said something the other day about local artists that stuck with me, and I think it's probably stuck with other people too as well. That you said that local artists are just not supported like they used to be. That people are not showing up for these live gigs like they used to, and I'm not particularly sure what's causing that. But I hope we can change that in some ways. I really like to see people be out more and connect with the various musicians and artists that we have around. And it's still there. But what do you think? You got to follow up on that thing because you were saying basically you went to hear the trio,
And nobody
they were
was there.
fantastic,
Yep.
and there was nobody.
Nobody there. Well, there are everything with the internet. I think has become so fragmented. In other
Right.
words, if you're looking for your group, your friends, you have one little niche on the internet, and so there are all these things. But to pull everything together, you really have to get the word out some way, find a way to market it where people, kind of like a common marketplace, like the old forum idea where
Right.
everybody meets up somewhere. And you've got to make effort to create these things. So I think that may be one of the issues. So I think for any kind of artistic thing, that's part of it. And then there's the other thing too. What is the art about? How do you expose a larger group to it to where they can develop a taste for it? Here's what I mean.
Right.
So we were rehearsing the other night, and
Okay.
we rehearse at Jordan High, and some of the Jordan students were there, band students, who were doing their thing, and they were through and they were going to leave, but they were waiting for rides. And as we played, of all things, the Pink Panther, the old Mancini tune,
Yeah, man.
they all came creeping back in, and they were like, that was great. And I was like, really? But you know what? They had never heard it.
Exposure. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they heard it. It was catchy. It was bluesy. It was fun. It was. They were all acting like cats, So I thought, people when they have a chance to try something new, maybe they develop a taste for it. But I think it's somewhere like that to go back and the other thing and. The trumpet player with the Cavaliers pointed this out the other night. COVID just about killed our band.
Right.
And then
Right.
you couldn't even rehearse. So
Right.
to pull all those people from all over the state of Georgia and Alabama, there are people from all over in the band, to pull them back together and have them commit to, you're coming in Thursday night for rehearsal, that was a heavy lift.
Yeah.
They
that's
accomplished
tough.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
yeah,
his deal was, if you ever let it slip away,
so hard to get back.
hard to get it going again. Just look at podcasting.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
And there's just a few of us, So,
right.
yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, you're right. There were so many things we had to kind of traverse through and get to the other side on. Well, I want to say something positive about retirement as we end up our conversation here. We got to have so many more retirement seminars. I'm probably going to start in this retirement seminar business. You too can have a great retirement.
It's a great idea.
Yeah, no, let's don't do any of that. I take that back. So we have other podcasts to talk about a lot of other issues. That's for sure. So, and some training videos coming up. All right, so let's try once again as my, and I'm trying for this transition into this sort of summary of it, and I don't know if I'm going to make it. I like my retirement right now.
Yeah.
I do, but it does take it takes a certain amount of cooperation from those around you. I've learned that, and so your retirement must fit into
Yep.
the river of actions and life that happens for all the other people you're connected to and around. So, in some ways, you have to figure out how to maybe knock off the edges of your retirement so it fits better in the environment of things, and it's not just a selfish trajectory there you're going
Yeah,
in to make
yeah.
yourself happy, but also to enjoy. So I think there's just so many life lessons. Pay attention to the small things. Look out, help other people when you get an opportunity. Pick up a piece of trash when it's on the ground and put it in the trash can. I mean, from every aspect of life and education, from eat well, exercise and sleep and all those kind of things. But if you have I don't know how to put this exactly, but if you've sort of been in that channel that is moving forward and progressing, and you've had a successful career, and you've had good relationships and families, okay, and things are all kind of happening there, you should really, really enjoy retirement and do the same things that you've been doing before retirement that help other people. But at the same time, enjoy life. So set aside some time during the day just for you. There was a group of people that really helped me with this process, and I had the fortune to work at Blue Ridge Mental Health in Asheville, North Carolina, for a while, and I want to say that I was in awe of these guys, these men and women, who were on the crisis intervention team, high-level crisis intervention team for Duke Hospital. These were the guys that were doing it. And so I was getting trained from some of those guys, and I was an intern. I'd come in and watch them, and they were just intense. They were the best. They knew their stuff. The theory, the latest kind of things going on to help people. And what happened was that 5 o'clock whistle blew, or the time it ended at 6 o'clock, and they were out mountain biking, canoeing,
Right.
climbing mountain rocks, and,
Yes.
and they were just the most active people in the world. And I thought, how in the world do they do this kind of work? And I realized that one of the things that I learned from them was that you take care of yourself. If you're going to do all this hard work to take care of other people, you got to be grounded somewhat in a healthy, normal lifestyle
Yep.
of some sort. And that's what they did. So they had separated this. I thought, well, they go home and just go like, I'm drained and I'm done. No, they were outgoing. And so I said, look, I want to be that. I want to be like those guys.
Right.
And so that was an inspiration at one point early in the career, where there has to be a balance in life. And I guess that's what I'm going to say about retirement. That's so lame, but that's what it is at this point.
Yep.
All right, final thoughts from you, and I'll cut this segment low.
The thing that works the best for me is something I'm learning now, and I don't think I've ever really practiced it consistently. Show up fully in the minute you're in right now.
Wow, that is amazing.
And for someone who, I think, I've had several careers, I've done a lot of different things, but it was always about, I was always in my own head, always living in the future, always living in the past, always judging, always evaluating. But instead, if you can say, it's sort of like the guy in Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, look at this. Isn't this great? If you can live like that, that is pretty leads to joy.
I don't know if Sean Penn said, have a good time all the time. I think that was part of that movie as well. But yeah, so I think we do have to learn those lessons. But what makes you happy? What makes you kind of get in the groove? What is it that really time goes by? You're saying like you were playing guitar and 2 hours is gone. You didn't know what happened there. You enjoyed it, and you were immersed in that activity. And it's somewhat like Ken Robinson talked about the essence. That really we have to find that essence that really kind of helps us move through all these difficult times as well as the pleasant ones. And so, yeah, I think that's pretty well said. So thanks for sharing that. All right, man. Anything else you want to say before I hit the stop the record button?
Good stuff, man. I thought